Music has power. Oh, yes, it does. Music has the power to reach millions across the globe. Music transcends culture. It transcends race. It transcends religion. And music transcends ability. We're living out loud with Rohan Gandhi. Find out why this man's gotta sing next.
Rohan, metaphorically speaking, is a racehorse. He's got blinds on both sides, on the left, on the right. Doesn't look in any direction but forward. Runs towards the finish line, cross that finish line, reach your goal. That's my aim with everything that I take on in my life, whether it's music or whether it's my career as a mechanical engineer. Despite your challenges, you can achieve anything you want. The difference between dreams and reality is purely desire.
You mentioned being a mechanical engineer. Was
Correct.
that something you knew from the get-go? Mama, this is what I'm going to do.
Yes, I would say, because I always had a passion for cars and airplanes. So I always wanted to work with something which was in line with that. And my dad always used to work on car engines when he was younger. And just observing him do whatever he used to do when he was younger and he could do that sort of work, it inspired me also. So just observing airplanes, vehicles, every young boy growing up, I guess, likes fast cars. So that's where my inspiration came from. I never always knew I would be a mechanical engineer, but I knew I would touch on something that had some relation to vehicles. Before I actually got the chance to be as smart as I actually wanted to be, I went through an unfortunate incident in my life. I got paralyzed at the age of 16.
What happened?
I got a viral infection of my spinal cord. It's the equivalent of an ischemic infarction. So it's what people get strokes in the brain. That's commonly heard, but not commonly heard that is stroke in the spinal cord. So my nerve endings were deoxygenated. This happened while I was in school in front of all of my peers. And within 15 minutes, I got completely paralyzed from the waist downwards.
And what causes that? Did the doctors tell you?
It's an autoimmune reaction, according to the doctors here. It's whereby your body's own immune system doesn't do what it's supposed to. So I was playing a field hockey game, and I felt sick, so I got the regular flu. And my body's immune system, instead of attacking the flu virus, it attacked my spinal cord abnormally.
So here you are, 16, and everything you've known about life has changed.
Correct.
You're going back to the basics. What was that like for you and your family?
Oh, it's very difficult to deal with because sports was my life, aside from like the social aspect of it. And then within 15 minutes of being in the presence of all of your peers, you get paralyzed completely, and you don't know what has actually happened to you, right? You don't know whether this is something that's going to last for 2 weeks, a month. Are you going to recover within a year? Today it's been 12 years. I'm still in a wheelchair. Yes, I have recovered significantly, but just being on that hospital bed, observing the ceiling, it's like you don't know what's next coming for you. I was in the middle of my A-levels, and I didn't know how I was going to go back to school. How would I face everyone that I grew up with? How would I be embarrassed? Would I be shy? Would I even have the courage to go back? It's one of those things. But you mentioned my family. My family is the reason why I actually went back and managed to become strong. Family support for me is everything.
As teenagers, what other people think is so important, to the point where we lose ourselves and we stop focusing on what matters most because we're so busy trying to look at what other people think.
Right.
How did you go beyond that?
People are judgmental in general, right? The world, it's not only teenagers. If you look at our society in general now, people with social media and everything, they can make fun of they can pick up on the slightest flaw that a person has and
it's
make
even
fun.
sometimes perceived flaw.
Yeah.
You don't know where this person is coming from.
Exactly, or it may not even exist. You may have heard it from your friend through just word of mouth, correct? So it's an unforgiving place right now, the world. So you have to build yourself mentally that other people's opinions are not going to change what my situation currently is. Only my mental state of mind is what's going to change how I perform in the future, correct? So for me, everything was focusing on what my family was telling me, that you're no different from the guy standing next to you. You're still that same old person. But at the end of the day, no matter how much somebody tells you something and tries to motivate you, there is always that fear that exists in you, right? Until you become fearless. And that's also part of my, when we touch on the music, I talk a lot about overcoming your fear. And once you overcome your fear, I feel you can achieve anything.
Anything is possible. Yeah. Going back, doing your A-levels and doing well, because I don't think students who don't do very well go on to mechanical engineering. We're all looking for people who are qualified and know what it is that they're doing.
Correct.
What was that like, throwing yourself into your studies?
I had to go back to school eventually after my illness. I took 4 months out. I went for rehabilitation to India, where they gave me more confidence to face people, even though I was on the verge of depression. But I went back to school, finished my A-levels. I wasn't the best performing student in my final years of schooling, but I did well enough to pass, and I took a year out of school after that. So taking a year out of school, did intense physiotherapy again to build myself mentally. It was not more about the physical state. The recovery which came with it was, yes, it was more than welcome, but it was all about my mental state of mind at the time. How all my friends went to university. Yeah. I was the only one that stayed here. So it was battling my own thoughts of, will I ever go to university? Will I ever get the opportunity to do what my friends have gone and done in university? So taking a year out, I managed to build up the courage with the support of my brother and my parents. And eventually, a year later, I went to Canada to study.
Music for you is not because of anything other than you're going to tell stories and you're going to help build other people.
Right.
And music, like we said at the beginning, is powerful. And I'm wondering, how long has it been? Have you released any music? What sort of style is this that you've got? Because, you know...
After I got paralyzed, I didn't know what sport to play. I didn't know what to do until I always had a poetic wit to me. But when I picked up a pen and I started penning down lyrics, making words rhyme, it started off as poetry for me. And I was like, this is a way for me to vent. Men hide their emotions. I used to bury mine after I got paralyzed. I didn't know who to talk to. Aside from my mom and dad or my brother, like, there are certain things you can't also tell your own parents. So these things are what sparked ideas in my mind that if I could pen that down as lyrics, some people paint, some people paint, some people...
sculpt.
Yeah, they sculpt, or they go into, like, everyone has their passion. Some people like photography. For me, I found my mind moving more towards poetry. And it was a blessing, because I wrote down everything. People have a diary, they write down their thoughts. Same thing, same concept exactly. Okay. And that's what sparked it. My music is not to get me fame or recognition. My music is to reach the youth, to send a message to people. Like, aside from motivating and inspiring, is to send a message through music, that paint a different picture with music. Most artists right now, that they write about what they aspire to be, even when they're not necessarily that. They rap about a big house.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it,
Bra.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, couldn't have put it better. But they're rapping about things that they don't currently have. I'm rapping about things I've seen with my own eyes. Music has to be authentic. It has to be believable by your audience.
What do doctors say in terms of mobility in the future for you?
I've reached a point where I can actually walk with crutches, but I still have instability in my pelvic area. So for me to get up from the wheelchair to have a proper human gait and to prevent myself from falling down is very risky. Yeah. If I was to go out to a social setting like a club, for instance, and someone was to bump into me with their shoulder and I was to fall down, the embarrassment is not what I'm worried about. It's about injuring myself. I already have low muscle tone on my legs. If I crack a bone or something, that's going to take me backwards. Strength in itself is not, it's a learned behavior. It doesn't have to be necessarily part of your character. You can observe strong people and know what it is that makes them strong and make yourself stronger as well. You can wheel yourself out of any bad situation. It's all your mental state of mind. That's what matters. And society is going to try and box you into what they want to shape you to be like. Don't let that happen. Like, be your own self, be your own person. There's ways of achieving self-satisfaction and self-motivation aside from what maybe your parents tell you, maybe what your friends tell you. And don't listen to what people tell you, always. Listen to good advice, but listen to the people that are advising you in a positive way, and keep those people around you.
For the rest of this story, please click here.